Good evening and welcome back to the regular council meeting of November 6th. After some in-camera deliberations, we are moving into a public hearing. The public hearing for bylaw number 2417, being a bylaw to adopt off-site levies, is in session at 7 p.m. This public hearing is held pursuant to the Municipal Governance Act, RCA 2000, Chapter M26, and amendments thereto. And this is Legislative Services.
Thank you, Your Worship and Council. The purpose of the public hearing is to discuss bylaw number 2417. First reading of this bylaw was given on October 2nd, 2024. Advertising for this public hearing was as follows. Notice of the public hearing posted on the Town of Strathmore website on October 8th, 2024. Notice of the public hearing was posted to Facebook on the following dates: September 13th, October 3rd, October 9th, October 18th, October 23rd, and October 30th, and finally November 6th today. Notice of the public hearing ran in the Strathmore Times on the following dates: October 9th, 16th, and the 23rd. And the notice for the public hearing was also included in the November 2024 utility newsletter. To date, no written submissions were received.
Pursuant of the Town's Council Procedure Bylaw, the following rules of conduct shall be followed during the public hearing to ensure procedural fairness. No person shall address council without the permission of the Deputy Mayor. No person shall speak more than once or for more than 5 minutes, exclusive of the time required to answer questions from council. Respect for staff, council, and the public shall always be maintained, and any person who wishes to address council shall state and spell their name. And please note, this is your time to let council know your thoughts. As per Council Procedure Bylaw number 2317, section 1212, no person shall address council regarding a matter that has been subject of a public hearing following the conclusion of the public hearing. The order of the presentation shall be the administration, those in favor of the bylaw, those opposed to the bylaw, and any other person deemed affected by the bylaw. Council may ask questions of the speakers after each presentation for clarification purposes. There will be no debating of the bylaw at this time. Would administration like to present? Welcome.
Good evening, Council. Thank you. I've brought this item before you twice already, so I won't get into too much detail. The one thing I do want to add is, on top of all of the notifications for the public hearing, is that on June 13th, we held a developer update, which was well attended. And at that time, the offsite levy bylaw was in a draft form. I'm going to call it about a 95% complete. So our development community had a very good chance to look at this, provide their comments, and give us any feedback before the report was actually finalized. So, on top of their opportunity to be here tonight, I do feel that we've given them ample opportunity to be aware of what's happening, have their feedback, and be heard. So with that, if council's got any questions, really the only thing I want to point out is the change from 3 zones to 11 zones. That makes it much more efficient and much more accurate on the cost for each specific development area. So thank you.
So I don't have any questions, just a thank you. I just want to extend my thanks to administration for consistently being so considerate of our business community, reaching out to them above and beyond what the expectations were. So thank you. Are there any questions from councilor? Is there anyone present who supports bylaw number 2417 who wishes to speak? Seeing none, is there anyone who opposes bylaw number 2417 who wishes to speak? Seeing none, is there anyone present deemed to be affected by bylaw 2417 who wishes to speak? Are there any questions of clarification from council? Well, that went well. No, my apologies, Councillor Montgomery.
Thank you. Ethan, if I could ask you, please. So my first question is, does offsite levies affect infills?
It can. The way that we look at it is, does the infill change the use of the property? And the way I look at that is, are you going from a single unit to, say, a 10-story building? And that may not be exactly contemplated here in the offsite levies. There are certain things that are contemplated, but there's also other not specifically off-site levies, but other surcharges, I could call them, for infrastructure upgrades that are necessary because of that increased density. So if you were a one-for-one, short answer is no. If you're increasing density, possibly.
Okay. And so I note that the downtown, like, which has, basically been around since the start of Strathmore, is included in the central zone. So is the downtown actually, let's say, equally liable for costs that would be incurred? Okay.
No, and so one of the things with creating these 11 zones is to make sure that each zone only pays for the portion which they are impacting.
Yeah.
One thing to remember is that in the past, the town used to collect offsite levies at the building permit stage, which is a process that we are getting away from. We actually got away from it in our last update to the bylaw about 3 years ago. So having that area cover the existing town gives us the ability to charge those fees for land that has never been developed.
Gotcha.
Which there are few and far between, but there are some, so we do need to accommodate that. But for certain things, specific example would be a future storm pond. The downtown's not paying for that. Simply because the infrastructure for them is already existing. They're not the reason that we would need an additional storm pond or things like that.
Okay, thank you very much.
Any other comments from council? Any clarifications? All right, I close this public hearing for bylaw 2417, a bylaw to adopt the town of Strathmore's off-site levies at 7:08. Next in the agenda is public comments. Before I read the spiel giving the rules, is there anyone even here from the public who wishes to speak? Then that saves me that. Any delegations here tonight? So we move on to the consent agenda. I hope council's had a minute to look through it. Is there any items on the consent agenda that councilors wish to remove? Councilor Montgomery?
I don't have any to remove, but I can move the agenda, though.
You're ready? Does anyone have anything they wish to remove? Then go ahead with the motion.
Thank you. I will move that council adopt the recommendations of the following agenda reports by an omnibus motion: 8.1, 8.2, 10.3, 10.4, 11.2.1, 11.2.2, 11.2.3, 11.2.4, and 11.2.5.
Does that satisfy legislative services? The super abridged version? You mean all this time we could have just said that and it would have been okay?
Thank you, Worship Council. As long as it's identified in the motion which items are being included in the consent agenda, I think as long as council is clear on the motion, that's the most important thing.
Is council clear on the motion? All right, all in favor? Carried. That was fantastic, Councillor Montgomery. You're my new hero. That just saved 37 seconds. We move on to bylaw 9.1, off-site levy bylaw 2417. Welcome back, Ethan.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor and Council. After that lengthy public hearing, I'm here to ask for second and third reading of this bylaw. If you have any questions, happy to answer them. Thank you.
Councillor Peterson.
If council has no questions, Your Worship, I'm ready to move.
No, I just think for the sake of people at home, I know, Ethan, you've gone over this with us, but just for the sake of people at home, if you could just give just a very general summary of what off-site levies cover, and then I think maybe what off-site levies don't cover and how there's still hope for the future on some of those. So maybe start with, what do off-site levies cover?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Off-site levies are charges which are placed on new developments to cover the infrastructure that is required due to that development. Generally, the way to look at it is the town is self-sufficient with the infrastructure that it has, but as growth happens, things need to be made larger, things need to be replaced with something bigger in the general terms. So the reason that those need to happen is because of development, therefore they pay for those. On the other hand, general maintenance is not something that's covered under offset levies. The utility rate or taxes are what cover general maintenance. So if a water line needs to be replaced just simply because of age, that's not something that's covered through the offsite levies. The other thing to clarify is our offsite levy bylaw as it currently exists is for infrastructure items only. The MGA does allow us to charge offsite levies for soft services, but we do not do that at this time.
And so if we don't charge off-site levies on the new builds, then what's happening is the current residents are subsidizing all that new infrastructure.
Correct.
And so when Ethan says that off-site levies don't cover new things, that includes, so for example, if the town's growing, off-site levies aren't counting new rec facilities, new police and fire services, and those sort of things?
Not at this time. We do have that option through the MGA, and I think we will bring that forward to council in the future, but this current bylaw does not include that.
And so by passing this tonight, I know I've asked this before, but by passing this tonight, we're not handcuffing ourselves or future council. We're just getting this in place, and then eventually council can reconsider what else to include in the off-site levies.
Council can update the offsite levy bylaw as they wish. The only thing that's mandated by the MGA, if we don't do an update to the bylaw, is that I need to provide you with an annual update on collections and expenditures.
All right, I don't have any questions. Anything else from council? Okay, I think Councillor Peterson, you were ready with a motion.
I would move the council gives second reading to bylaw 24-17 being the offsite levy bylaw.
With the motion on the floor, is there any discussion? Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor? And that is carried. Councillor Peterson,
I'd move the council give third reading to bylaw 24-17 being the offsite levy bylaw.
if there's no discussion, I'll call the question. All in favor? And that is carried. And that moves us to 9.2, 2025 Fees Bylaw, number 2415. 2425. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship and Council. Not a lot to go through with you here. We brought the draft fees and charges bylaw to council at the Committee of the Whole in September. And administration was tasked with looking at a few items on like recreation and the changes. Mark, I didn't know if we had some work to present through there.
Sure, I can speak to, through your worship, through your chair. Council requested some additional information regarding all access memberships, and I can provide some details. For example, we're just really comparing 2023 to 2024. Information regarding and data for 2022 was significantly impacted still through COVID. We had a number of memberships that were either frozen or reactivated or started stopped. So we saw significant decreases in terms of regular usage of the facilities, even during 2022. So in comparing 2023 to 2024, we have our revenue for 2023 was approximately $145,000 from membership sales. Of that, $33,000 was from the All Access membership revenue. There were 66 memberships sold at that time, and our categories expanded into 2024. We only had about 9 different categories in 2023, but as council requested, additional categories for the All Access membership were added into 2024, and so we saw some different numbers in membership sales. So for year to date, for recreation memberships, we have approximately $90,000 that's been generated. Of that, about $17,000, $18,000 for the All Access membership revenue. It should be noted, though, that historically there's been an increase in membership sales during the final quarter of the year, as typically we see residents purchase memberships to beat any increase in fees and things like that. All Access membership sales accounted for 19, almost 20% of recreation membership sales, and 31% of the total access of the All Access memberships were sold, as opposed to 66 in 2023.
Counselor Montgomery, you were the one who put in the request. Does that kind of satisfy your curiosity?
So if I'm understanding this correctly, and I understand that more could possibly be sold between now and the end of the year, revenue has gone down and the number of passes has gone down since from one year to the next?
Through the chair, that's correct, Councilor Montgomery. As I indicated, though, we had increased different categories we added 10 and 30-day passes, as well as 1, 3, and 6-month memberships, whereas historically we used to only sell an annual pass. So we could have seen smaller increments here or there, but that we can't. It's hard for us to compare apples to apples in that case.
Okay. Thank you. And so if I want to propose an amendment to that part of our fee schedule, I would just do that as part of a motion then? Okay. So I'll move that council gives first reading to bylaw number 24-25 being the 2025 fees bylaw.
Sorry, just procedural question. Counselor Peterson, did your question need to be asked before the motion was on the floor? Okay, so I hear a motion on the floor. And so now the discussion will continue. Though administration, I suspect you had more to say.
No, not a ton more. That was the main item we wanted to go through. Just to reiterate, a big change that we are recommending is imposing a credit card fee on any user who chooses to pay any utility bill, property tax bill with credit card, and that's a 1.5% fee to kind of recover our cost on it. Right now, all taxpayers are effectively paying that fee because we have to pay the service providers for it. So that is a big one that we anticipate council may get questions on in the future.
I did have a question for administration. So during the committee of the whole meeting, I did direct administration to look into this, but I don't see any information on this coming back to me. So I'll just ask again. It sounds like a shocking and alarming thing to say, but I was kind of hoping that the user fees on the recreation were going to go up. Now, why would I say that? The reason I say that is we're looking at the budget tonight, and property taxes are conceivably going to be going up. It doesn't make sense to me that user fees don't correspond with the property tax increases. When a property tax goes up, people have no choice but to pay it. When a user fee goes up on a rec facility, people can make adjustments to their lifestyle based on that and make decisions accordingly. And so it's actually, I think, more sensitive to the poor, more sensitive to people struggling to increase user fees instead of putting all that weight on property taxes, because then users like my family can make decisions on what to do. So why not go up? Why is that not part of this package for us?
Through your chair, Deputy Mayor Wiley, we did increase a significant number of our recreation fees. All the facility rental rates were increased on average about 2 to 3%. Admission memberships for the facilities as a part were kind of frozen for this year, and I shouldn't say the word frozen. They were in line. We made some adjustment the year before for this year's budget as a part of an overall strategy to bring some consistency for the recreation membership fees. It's our goal next week to present a cost recovery policy to council, and as a part of that, it'll indicate where our cost recovery are as an average for all our facilities, all our recreation facilities and services, and provide some guidelines for council on how that would be to set cost recovery percentages, and therefore would directly contribute to recreation fees and other services and programs.
Okay, so I really appreciate that. The cost recovery is a big deal for me, because then that brings in what Councillor Montgomery's concerned about, is if you just do a flat user fee increase, then economically speaking, obviously, you could actually be losing more money for town taxpayers in those facilities. So that satisfies me. I do see another question on the floor. Councillor Montgomery?
Oh, I didn't mean to have my light on, but I'm just trying to think here about what the best way to go about this would be. Because what I want to suggest is that we drop our annual pass to about 1,200 per year.
What page are you on?
So this is page 234.
Sorry, if I might raise a quick point of order, should we be debating the bylaw before completing first reading?
Yeah,
Or
we
should
should,
we
yeah,
be
let's
completing,
complete first reading, you're correct.
completing first reading and moving on to second reading before we start
Okay,
debate?
my apologies. So that's a procedural error. So I guess then I call the question. All in favor of the motion on the floor? And that brings us to the second reading. Is there a motion for that? Councillor Peterson.
I would move that council give second reading to bylaw 24-25, being the 2025 fees bylaw.
And again, my apologies for the mistaken procedure. Now the discussion and the debate would begin. Councillor Montgomery, what page again did you say that we were on?
Is where the all-access passes are.
Got everything divided up.
I guess question for administration on the kind of cleanest way to do this. So one thing that I'd like to bring forward is that we look, I would like administration to bring forward a proposal for discussion and possible decision regarding the option for monthly payments on annual passes. And then the other thing is like, if I had kind of had this information sooner, I would have probably jumped on this, but I'm interested in proposing an amendment to the fees for the all-access pass. But obviously, I don't want to sit here and kind of go through every single one of them. So how do you guys want to handle this? Do you want me, like, is there some cleaner way to do it?
Councillor Montgomery, could we just direct administration to come back with an all, like we could make it part of the second reading to pass everything except the all-access pass and direct administration to come back with something
Yeah,
that's.
like, is that the best way? Is that fine for you guys?
Right.
Thank you, Worshiping Council. What council could do, there is a motion for second reading on the floor right now for consideration. Following that, you can make a motion to defer the bylaw to the upcoming committee of the whole next week as well for further debate. And with that motion, you could also direct administration to look into the.
I think what would be great is if there are other changes that council knows at this point that you want to make, that we could at least have those amendments as well, just so that when we're ultimately moving forward with the budget process, that we're really clear on adjusting our revenue, so we're giving you the best information for your deliberations as well.
The fees bylaw they want to suggest?
I support your amendment, Councillor Montgomery, and I don't have any further amendments. My only concern was with the all-access pass.
So I will move that we defer this reading to the committee of the whole for further debate. And then do you want me to make a separate motion for you guys to review what I just mentioned?
Thank you, Your Worshiping Council. So you'd have to defer second reading to the November 20th meeting, just because council can't make motions during the committee of the whole.
Right.
But you could propose an amendment to the second reading to direct administration to bring the bylaw to the committee of the whole on November 13th, if you want, if you so
Okay,
desire.
so rather than deferring, just do that, or defer it and do both? Okay.
I think, Councillor Montgomery, the cleanest is you just make an amendment to the second, so the motion on the floor is the second reading. You just make amendment to that to direct administration to bring this back with a all access pass that's more affordable. Because if we wait till the committee of the whole meeting, we're getting into December, and that is altering. Oh, next week is committee of the whole, okay.
Yeah, so there's the November 13th Committee of the Whole is next week. So council would have the option today, if you would like, you can pass second reading and then make that motion to defer further discussion on the bylaw to the Committee of the Whole. You could defer second reading to the November 20th meeting, but then also have another motion directing administration to bring this item back on November 13th. Ultimately, it's up to council how you wish to proceed, but the cleanest way might be the former.
To just,
Do second reading and then direct administration to bring back to the 13th.
I will,
So what I'm hearing is we could approve the second reading here tonight and then make another motion to direct administration to bring this back to the next week's Committee of the Whole. I like that because I also am curious about increasing the user fees just to reflect the property tax increases as well. So that gives us an opportunity to talk about that again next week. So is there any more comments on this? Councillor Langmaid?
I just had one more question, just to clarify and make sure I heard it right. I believe someone said that next week we would be seeing for the first time kind of a cost recovery model for our recreation facilities. Is that correct?
Yes, through the chair, we've developed a policy that may help alleviate some of the questions here that council has. So we'll be hopefully presenting that next week.
Okay, perfect. That sounds like a good opportunity to have another look at this and have that important piece of context when we're making these decisions as well. So perfect. Thank you very much.
All right, seeing no other comments or questions, I call the question this is for the second reading. All in favor? And that passes unanimously. And Councillor Montgomery, you had another motion?
yes, thank you. I will move that council direct administration to bring forward a proposal for discussion and possible decision at the following council meeting. Well, yeah, sorry. So we'll bring this to the Committee of the Whole for information, I guess. I'm sorry, I'm butchering this. Okay, so yeah, I will move the council direct administration to bring back this fees bylaw to the Committee of the Whole for further discussion.
The motion's on the floor. Any questions or discussion? Then I call the question. All in favor? That passes unanimously.
Okay, and then I will also move the council direct administration to bring back options for monthly payments for the annual all access pass, as well as proposed reduction to the all access pass, with the annual being $1,200, and then you can, and also I would like to also have a 9-month pass in there as well, please. And I can explain why later, and I think that's it.
When you're ready, Jonathan, would you be able to read back the motion?
Yeah, I need to know what it says too, please.
Removing the ums and ands and
Thank you, Worshiping Council. Please correct me if I'm wrong in any way here. That council direct administration bring back options for monthly all access pass, as well as proposed reductions to all access passes, reducing the annual pass to $1,200, and also bringing a possibility for a 9-month pass as well to council. I did not. Monthly payments? I missed it. Okay. So, thank you, Your Worship Council. Just to clarify, that was to reduce the annual pass to $1,200 and include monthly payments on this pass. and then 9-month option.
Have all the councillors heard and understood the motion on the floor? I'm going to support it, but at the committee of the whole, I'll be curious as to why, if we're doing monthly payments on it, we would need a 3-month, 6-month, or 9-month pass if it's already just a monthly payment. But that's just a discussion. That's just a discussion for that night. So if there's no other comments or questions on the motion on the floor, I'll call it. All in favor? And that's carried unanimously. All right. I think it's safe to say the moment we've all been excitedly awaiting for, the item 10.1, the 2025 proposed operating and capital budget. And I welcome CAO Scoble to the floor.
There we go. Okay. All right, good evening, Your Worship and members of council. The following presentation is a high-level overview of the proposed 2025 budget in order to table the information before you and set the stage for the upcoming meetings over the next couple weeks. Administration will be happy to respond to questions of council to support upcoming meetings. However, this evening's presentation is not intended to provide a deep dive into specific items. So the 2025 budget has been built to support the 6 strategic priorities that are contained within Council's strategic plan. Of note, particular emphasis has been placed on financial sustainability to ensure predictable tax rates and user fees. This is an investment-focused budget that includes a reduction of overall financing because of the work the town has done on reducing debt over in recent years, a reduction of operating costs, and an increase in investments in town reserves, as well as an addition of $160,000 towards establishing a repair, maintain, and replace program to support our long-term asset management strategy. The proposed tax increase of 4.5% with the utility rate of 4%. This budget balance is being fiscally responsible while also planning for the future. So for the public, Council has identified 6 strategic priorities in its strategic plan, which include affordable housing with a focus on being an affordable community for residents and businesses, enabling access to housing, services, and supports. Financial sustainability with a focus on providing predictable and stable tax rates and user fees that reduce overall town debt, build reserves, maintain existing assets, and plan for sustainable growth. Intentional community development with a focus on creating communities for its residents and with its neighbors and institutional partners, which promotes sustainable and interdependent family-friendly spaces. Climate resiliency, including environmental stewardship, with a focus on protecting, maintaining, and enhancing the local environment while preparing for future challenges due to climate change. Economic development with a focus on well-positioning Strathmore to encourage commercial and industrial economic development, supporting our sustainable growth. And finally, community wellness with a focus on the maintenance, protection, and improvement of services that support optimum lifestyles. So as I mentioned previously, this is an investment-focused budget. In alignment with Council's strategic plan, you will see that we have reduced our overall operating expenses from 2024, increased our community investment in our infrastructure through strategic capital investments, and have significantly increased our contribution to our reserves to plan for the future. So our operating costs are down this year from $36.2 million last year to $35.98. We're proposing capital investments of $9.3 million, which is a 4% increase from last year's proportion. And we're proposing to increase reserves to $3.4 million, which is a 1% increase over reserve contributions in last year's budget. As mentioned, the one thing that this council should be exceptionally proud of is the commitment to reducing the town's debt. So in 2020, the debt was $21.2 million, and I'm pleased to say that this number has been reduced to $13.9 million in 2024. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Liana to walk through the proposed budget in detail.
Good evening, Your Worship and Council. Well, as Kevin has, or CAO Scoble has explained very eloquently in the first part of the presentation, is our main focus here was to ensure that we're investing in the future. I'm going to congratulate each one of you that you have done a phenomenal job in your terms on council on being able to do that. It has taken a tremendous strength to be able to say, no, we need to be putting money away and ensuring that we're saving for the future. So in this, oops, my apologies. I have to move the slide. One of the ways that we've done that within this operating budget is we are putting away money for our non-reoccurring projects. So we do an update to our land use bylaw. We only do this every 10, 15 years. But what we're doing is trying to alleviate the spikes in our property taxes by putting money away for some of these projects. No different than our offsite levy bylaw, our transportation master plan, and other plans like that. So within this budget, we're seeing an overall increase, a total tax increase of 4.5%. A 1% tax increase in this budget is $168,400. As CAO Scoble mentioned, our utilities are seeing on average a 4% increase. Oh, and I am on the wrong slide. Technology and I don't always agree. So as Kevin showed in one of the previous slides, we saw a reduction in our operating expenses. Right here in front of us is, we see a 39.4% or $39.4 million budget. That includes all expenditures, where Kevin's slide showed us how much we're paying for operating, how much we're paying for putting money into our reserves, and how much we're paying debt down. So starting to go through our budget, we see an increase in our property tax revenue. We actually see for our municipal taxes a 5.1% increase in revenue. This is 4.8% municipal plus growth. So we have been growing with our assessments and with new homes within our community. Within our utilities, we see a 4% increase in most of our fees. Where we can control our own individual costs is on our consumption. And this is where we have seen a significant increase in our water usage. We went from 1.15 million cubic meters to 1.2 million cubic meters. That's a lot of water. So if we want to reduce our costs with our utilities, we have to be paying attention to how much water we use. Our next revenue area is our franchise fees. This is another way that we have reduced the amount of taxes that we collect is by collecting franchise fees. So these are on our power and natural gas bills. Back in 2019 is when we started increasing our franchise fees. Currently, we are at the maximum for both of these. So ATCO Gas, the maximum is 35%, and Fortis is 20%. Overall, we only see about a $200,000 increase, which is a 5.7% of total increase in this section. Next is our user fees. We see a slight decrease of about 200,000 once again, and just because of our overall, the numbers don't really look like an overall percentage, but it's when you're looking just at that section you see a 0.9% decrease. In our government grants, we see a small decrease, and this is mainly due to some of our FCSS grants that we had been receiving. So in 2025, we see a reduction in our provincial social prescribing model grant. So this is why we see a decrease in our revenues here. But of course, This program is at zero cost to our residents, so we see a reduction in revenue. We'll also see corresponding reduction in expenses. Our largest expense section within the town of Strathmore here is we see a 3.3% increase of, or $400,000 in salary and wages. What is included in this operating budget is staff will see, if eligible staff will see a step increase or a 2% increase if they're eligible, and COLA would be applied of 2% as of July 1st. The largest area where we see a reduction in our expenditures is within our contract services. What we've done here is we have eliminated on budgeting for the contingent expenditures, the just-in-case kind of expenditures. These are the ones for contract services, for repairs and maintenance. And these are ones that when we do actually have something that comes up, Ethan and I will be in front of you asking to take money out of reserves to spend to fix some of the challenges that we are facing. Our next category is our insurance. We see a 10.4% increase. This is due to our insurance costs. We've did a valuation of our properties, and that has increased. So we have higher insurance premiums to pay for that. So this equates to about a 10.4% increase. Our next one that we see is our electricity and natural gas. Yes, we have locked in commodity rates, but it's the incidentals at the end, the transmission charges, things like that. We've been working with AIC, to ensure that we are presenting the best numbers here in front of you. And both natural gas and electricity rates are locked in until the end of 2026. Our next expenditure that is worth talking about is we have reduced our RCMP contract. This one is based on trend analysis. We are still putting money away to ensure that when we hit that $15,000 population mark, that we are going to be able to afford the 90%, going from 70% to 90%. So we are still being financially responsible on planning for that. But what we are seeing right now is we're never at full complements. So what we've done is being fiscally responsible is reduce the amount that we're taxing our residents. And the thing that we do with our RCMP, though, on an annual basis, so if we have a surplus in the money that we have not spent in the contract, is we always come back to council and ask you guys to put that into reserve so we don't spend it on something that is not RCMP related. We always know that the RCMP contracts are negotiated a few years out. The last one, when they did the retro payment, it was 7 years retro. We're hoping this next one is only 2, possibly 3 years. I don't believe it's been ratified yet. So as I had mentioned before, one of our largest reductions is in our engineered structures maintenance and repair, so our contract services. So we see roughly about a $100,000 decrease there, or 31%. As we're paying down debt, our interest payments go down. So we see a slight decrease here. And one of the very proud things that we have here in this operating budget is we see a substantial increase in our transfers to operating reserves. So we have an actual increase of $1 million, RMR, or repairs, maintenance, and rehabilitation. I might have the R's in the wrong order there. And replenishment of $400,000 to the financial stabilization reserve, as we have withdrawn money from that reserve over the past year. we think it's fiscally responsible to be replenishing that so we have money to put towards the one-time uses. The one thing that we do not have in here is an increase to debt. Because in our capital budget, we have said that we have one project that we would actually prefer to take debt out on, and that is our water reservoir. What we are anticipating is we would be doing a bylaw at the beginning of the year to start the process to be able to borrow the money within 2025. But we wouldn't actually look at drawing on that money until the second half of the year. So if we draw the money, say, in quarter 3 or quarter 4, we actually wouldn't have a principal payment due in 2025. So as I had mentioned earlier, in this budget, we have actually added these non-annual reoccurring expenditures transfers to reserves. So every year, if we weren't going to do any one of these projects, we should be putting about $320,000 away. But as we are doing projects on an annual basis, and it changes every year, as you see, we have the council strategic planning. We don't do that, a review or a brand new strategic plan every year. We do updates. As with every council term, we get together with all the councillors and we develop a new strategic plan. One other item on here is our municipal election. We don't have a municipal election every year. We have one every 4 years. So we would be putting money away to spread the costs over 4 years. So we don't see the expenditure in, say, in 2026. You see the, well, because next year is an election year, we'll see the expenditure in 2025. But in 2026, 27, and 28, we'd just be putting an equal amount away on those years, and then on the year that you're actually doing the event or the election, we would be drawing the 3 years previous money out to help smooth the trend of what we're taxing our residents on. For me, that makes really good sense because then I can plan that I know I'm going to have this type of payment over the next 3 to 5 years. Last year was the first year we brought this to you. We brought you what our utility annual surpluses are. So within this budget, we've maintained a similar amount. It's very common for municipalities to subsidize some of their taxes with some utility revenues. In a perfect world, we should be putting all of our surplus for utilities right into reserves. But if we were going to do that in, say, 2025, that'd be a 15% tax increase. I'm not sure that would be feasible to any councillor or any member of the public, but it's something to dream and get to. It's something we should be working at getting to. It's, you have a child, you save for their education. You don't automatically go, oh, well, you're 2 now, so I've got $100,000 to send you to school. So as CAO Scoble has said, and here it's just a graphic, more numbers than a graph, is money that we've been putting into our reserves. So in 2023, we put $3.6 million in. You're going, well, that's pretty good. But remember, in 2023, on advice from our auditors, we took all of our unrestricted, or all of our accumulated surplus, and we put those into designated reserves. So it's easier to use the reserves without having to run them through accumulated surplus, because it really skews what our financial statements look like. So then in 2024, we had 2.6 million. 2025, we're proposing almost 2.4 million, or $3.4 million. And we're gradually looking at increasing it over the next few years. Now, here's a really proud slide. You guys should almost frame this for you. Is our debt limits in 2023 were 32, we were at 32% of our debt limit. Look at starting 2025. We're only at 21%. Look at all the debt we've paid down. This is an amazing job that everyone here has done. Oh, let me go back here. So in 2027, you see it drops to 12%. This is kind of misleading right here because we have two debts that we would either need to redo the amortization on or have balloon payments on. So sometimes paying an additional $4 or $5 million is a lot of money to deal with all at one time. Administration's recommendation at that time, depending on where our interest rates are, maybe let's re-amortize it and spread it out over the next few years. In 2025, I did not adjust what our debt limits are going to be. Part of it is I don't have your approval yet that we're going to actually borrow the money. You may turn around and say, I'd prefer you to try and do this another way. Administration's recommendation to you is for the water reservoir that we are going to borrow the money. If you look at this slide, the municipal debt, this is a comparison to our average Alberta towns. So in 2015, town of Strathmore was below the Alberta average towns. Pretty average, pretty standard. 2016, we're about the same. 2017, oh my goodness, we took some debt out. Now we're a little bit above. But look at where we are now. In 2024, we are 4% lower than our average towns. Once again, tremendous work, you guys. So this slide is a little bit of a repeat on the debt limit. This is just showing basically what our debt payments are per year. Basically 3 million in 2023, 3.6 in 2024, 3.6 roughly in 2025. 2026 we see a significant drop, and this is because we've paid off one of our debts. And in 2027 we would be looking at either re-amortizing or paying off debts on the two debts that are outstanding. Once again, I do not have the debt in here for the water reservoir because I do not have your approval yet to go and borrow it. Our recommendation is, though, that we are to borrow for that capital project. So this is a little bit of a repeat, just in another format. So this is our annual debt servicing limits. In 2023, 36% of our operating budget was going to service our debt. 24, significant decrease, down to 29%. 25, we're at 28%. 2026, with having the one debt paid off in 2025, we dropped to 18%. Once again, I have not adjusted this for the water reservoir. As Kevin showed you earlier in a slide, this is a really great graphics. This is showing where we were and where we're at right now. I'm hoping everyone with their mortgage can show this kind of decrease as well. Some do, some don't. This is another great slide. This is showing how much money we've been putting away into our reserves. So you see at the beginning of 2023, we had $13.1 million in reserves. Opening of 2024, we were at 15.6. We're projecting at the end of 2024 to be at 11.2. We spent a little bit of money this year. That's okay. This was planned. And so what we were proposing within this operating budget was we're going to be putting more money back into reserves. So one of the next things here that's included in this operating budget is our community group funding. This is all the people that came in front of you guys, I believe October 26th, or late October. Roughly we have 3.2% of our operating budget that was already included within this operating budget. There is a number of requests that council has decisions to make on if they want to fund any of them, want to reduce funding on others. So, but right there is about a $300,000 increase. So these are our community groups that we have funding agreements with. So that's another 2.5% of our operating budget for a total of 5.7. Once again, some of these people or some of these community groups are asking for additional money. And we will be presenting this within our budget deliberations first meeting to kind of get your opinion, kind of where you want us to go. One of the things that I probably forgot to mention right at the very beginning is this operating budget that's in front of you, you have a $100,000 surplus. So you can lower taxes by $100,000. You can decide to change what you want to fund within the operating budget. If you want to fund community groups, there's another opportunity there too. But once again, this is your budget. And administration just strives to accomplish everything that you want within the operating budget. So one of the things I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about is we've talked about tax dollars. Now I want to talk to you about our annual tax increase. So as I said, this budget has a 4.5% tax increase overall, total tax increase. There's actually a 4.8% tax increase and only a 4% education tax increase. We increased the amount that we estimated from what last year's was, which gives us a total tax increase of 4.5%. So as you see, the municipal portion in 2024 was $16,013,600, where this budget is $16,827,200. So these are our tax comparisons. So last year, when we did our property tax bylaw, it was requested that we keep the change in tax collected being the same for residential and non-residential. And how we can do that is by changing the tax split or the property tax ratio. So as you see in 2020, 21, and 22, it was 1.2. So 20% higher for commercial than it was over residential. In 2023, we went up a little bit higher. In 2024, we went up a little bit more. The average towns in Alberta, so in 2020, it was 1.6 to 1.7, and then basically it's kind of leveled off at the 1.6, 1.6, and then 1.5 for 2024. So this slide shows your assessment. So right now, we have $2.369 billion in residential assessment. Our commercial assessment is $342,495,000, or 13% of our assessments. This is taxable assessments. So you're going, okay, well, only 13% non-res, 87% residential. Maybe we need to be looking at this. So when we look at the tax ratio at 2024, where we had 79% being residential, or 12,700,000, and we had 21% for commercial taxes, or almost $3.3 million. This is what the pie chart looks like on who paid for the taxes, the municipal portion. So I know this is the one that you guys are always looking for. So this is the change on our average home, residential average home. So in 2024, our single-family home was, average single-family home was $420,000 in assessment. In 2025, our assessors are saying that we are going to see another increase like we did last year. Residential is going to be between probably 12 and 14% increase. Good for if you're selling a property, that you're going to make money, but if you're moving into another one, you're still paying that much more for something else. So you're looking at the municipal tax, and you're going, well, it's only $156, but it's $156. Some people can afford it, others can't. Then we look at our non-residential. So because non-residential we kind of treat flat at $1 million. I have to catch up my speaking notes to my. So overall, our municipal tax on $1 million is only $140. The one thing to remember in within non-residential, you have your box stores. They're the huge ones. Those ones are huge dollars. Then you have your storefronts, and those are the smaller ones that are probably assessed at between $300,000 and say $500,000. Basically, on average, they're seeing roughly about the same amount of an increase right now. Our assessors were just giving us more information late last week. We just got our equalized assessment. I believe that was last week. But overall, in our estimated taxes, it's kind of scary. With the tax split that we have, the tax ratio split, our non-res actually see a reduction in our municipal tax. Our utility rates, where we're saying is roughly 4%. So you see last year we actually made our residential and our commercial rates the same. We've left them the same this year as well. So your water's 4.1, your wastewater's 4, stormwater's 4.1, your solid waste is 4. Your infrastructure levies, and this is the money that we collect and we transfer straight to reserves. We are going from, in 2024, we had $8.96 per month. For 2025, we're going $9.32 per bill per month, or a 4% increase. So on a monthly, or on an annual, this is not very large. It's about $23,000 roughly increase. And now I'm going to turn it back over to our senior leadership team to talk about their divisions. So Kevin, you're up again.
All right, so in the executive budget, the proposed business cases directly align to council's strategic priorities around financial sustainability and economic development. So as I've mentioned earlier, this is an investment-focused budget. One of the key new initiatives that's contained within the executive budget is the $160,000 that's for the Repair, Maintain, Replace program. We continue to focus on building the town's reserves while reducing the operating costs, maintaining the service levels, and with our existing staff complement and remaining competitive on many fronts in the region. So we have two business cases built into the executive budget. The first is to enable the development of an investment attraction strategy. So this business case is tied to the INRED grant application that you approved on the consent agenda this evening. The development of the investment attraction strategy will support council with meeting its economic development goals in line with the strategic plan. There were a couple of strategic withdrawals made this past year from the fiscal stabilization reserve. One was to support the next step on the seniors lodge, and the other was in relation to the water license that we purchased. There was also a withdrawal to ensure funds were in place for the emergency costs associated with the recent water main break in Calgary. But we have received confirmation that the insurance claim will be paid, and therefore part of the plan with replacing the funds that were used in the response to the emergency is to transfer those insurance proceeds back into the financial stabilization. And so moreover, to ensure that there continues to be adequate funds for future strategic purchases, administration is recommending that council allocate $400,000 to the financial reserve this year to assist with topping the reserve up. Overall, in the executive budget, you'll see a net decrease. The reduction in revenue was from a reduction of a transfer from reserves that was approved in 2024 to support the next steps with the seniors lodge. Overall, the expenses are down as well, resulting in a decrease in the overall executive budget. And I would also comment that council's included in this as well, your budget. So with that, I'll turn it over to Kara.
So good evening, Your Worship and members of council. So our budget has been built to enable the services that we deliver to support with maintaining a strong financial position, managing corporate risk, ensuring good governance, enabling technological advancement, and support ensuring strong brand recognition and positive reputation management, as well as providing opportunities for ongoing community engagement with residents, businesses, and other stakeholders. In preparing the 2025 budget, we've continued to find efficiencies and cost savings. As part of the development of the 2025 budget, we further centralized the legal costs within the town, resulting in a slight reduction in costs. While costs have reduced slightly, we have built in dollars into the budget to prioritize and undertake a review of the town's legal templates going forward on an annual basis to ensure that the town's interests are protected for the longer term. Our IT team has found efficiencies within its budget by reviewing software licensing and recommending the elimination of a software that was only being used by 1 or 2 individuals within the organization, while also providing other opportunities to continue to deliver the service via an alternate means for a cost savings of approximately $25,000. This team also examined its contract service dollars and has noticed decreasing trends of usage over the past couple of years and has made further reductions to align with actual spend. Our finance team recently shared the proposed fees bylaw with council, which included that proposed new source of revenue, regarding credit card charges. As there was no feedback previously to remove the same at the committee of the whole, this proposed revenue has been incorporated into this budget. This new source of revenue is intended to offset the costs that the town incurs for enabling the use of credit cards while still providing the same level of service to residents. So as residents still have the option to pay via Interac, cash, etc., with no additional charge. Our legislative services team has seen an overall increase in their budget to cover the 2025 election. Our communications and marketing team have reduced our corporate advertising and promotion budget while looking for opportunities to apply for grants, such as the NRED grant that you approved on the consent agenda tonight, to offset these reductions. Through this action, the town is positioned to be able to continue delivering high-quality branding campaigns and that will support with local investment and attraction while ensuring that we continue to provide predictable tax increases to our residents in alignment with council's strategic plan. I want to provide a high-level overview of the proposed operating business cases that are in our 2025 budget. So the first is the managed cyber incident response. There have been an increased number of cyber attacks on local governments, with local governments being a key target for these bad actors. Our team is proposing that we pay for a solution that will automate a cyber incident response in the event that this occurs. As this relates to security of the public body, if there are specific questions regarding the details of this business case, I would recommend that we move in camera. We have been informed by our website provider that we need to migrate our website off of the existing platform onto a new platform. This is anticipated to occur in 2025. While these costs are for the migration of the website, they have also been captured in the NRED grant that was before you tonight, so that we can hopefully leverage additional funds to support with starting the redesign of the website as well. You will see that the capital budget that we are starting to plan for longer-term replacement of the ERP. Because we've been notified that it's at its end of life, that its end of life will be 2029, the operating business case for the ERP cloud migration that is contained within this budget is to provide needed upgrades to the ailing system as a stopgap measure until the longer-term permanent solution can be implemented. So the increase that you'll see on this slide mostly comprises of the proposed business cases, the budget for 2025 election, and other inflationary increases. The main highlight for the items in our 2025 capital budget is that we're focused on maintaining our services while also looking for opportunities to modernize and enhance our technological systems to support with efficiencies, service delivery, and more in the future. As I mentioned, we were notified recently that the end of life and product support for GP and Diamond, which is our financial software, will be September 30th, 2029. What this means is that prior to that date, we'll need to plan for and implement a new solution. The funds that are in the proposed capital budget for the ERP scoping include engaging stakeholders from across the organization on their technological needs, preparing the RFP, issuing it, and support with evaluating the technological proposals and software. While this wasn't a planned expense, this is an opportunity for the town to evaluate its systems and look for ongoing ways to integrate, automate, and provide self-serve options for the community.
The capital budget business case regarding internet for the fire hall is to ensure that there is predictable and reliable internet to this facility. Last year, we were successful in working with the local telecom provider to rectify a similar solution at no cost to the town for another facility. We are currently in discussions with providers to see if there are any cost savings or reductions that can be found to do the same at this location. There are currently issues with the bulk water terminal payment system that is requiring additional staff time and affecting service to the community. Therefore, this requires replacement. One of our recurring expenses in the capital budget is the evergreening of IT equipment, such as town facilities, corporate networking, data storage, computers, and phones. We've been doing this previously, so this is not a new item, but instead being communicated for transparency purposes. The final item before you is the IT server upgrade. This is essential for business continuity of the town's operations relating to information management. There's an increased demand upon our IT infrastructure to accommodate the growing pressures of a digital era. Our team is also focused on looking for digital opportunities to support economic development. The capacity of the current server prohibits growth to support in this area. And with that, I will turn it over to Mark.
Thank you, Kara. Your Worship, Council. Today I'm speaking about the Community and Protective Services budgets. As you can see above there, the CAPS team consists of 4 departments: FCSS, Municipal Enforcement, Recreation and Culture, the Strathmore Fire Department, as well as a liaison with the towns with the RCMP. Our budget highlights are that our operations are consistent with the objectives of the strategic plan by focusing on the maintenance, protection, and improvement of services. The operating budget maintains the facilities and existing services and programs that expected by the community, including preventative programs that enhance social well-being. We do, and I spoke about this earlier, have a small increase on facility rental rates in comparison and comparable with other communities. Our operating business cases, we have 4 in total, as you can see above you. We have our training and development budget for the fire department. This brings us in line with the required training elements for a department of our size. We have our watch clerk overtime, and this is a budget increase that reflects that the RCMP watch clerks work the statutory holidays along with their shifts. And this we see a portion of this money being a cost recovery from our other 2 partners, Wheatland County and Rocky View County. We have a business case to purchase outright the neon sign on the Strathmore Motor Products Sports Center. Currently, we lease that sign, and we're at the end of that lease agreement. And by purchasing this sign outright, we'll have no more lease payments for that sign. The last operating business case relates to a mechanical heater in the curling rink. The existing heater has reached its ends of life, and this ensures that the plant does not freeze up in an Alberta cold winters. Here you can see some of the highlights of the operating expenses. We have a small decrease in revenue associated with the overall department and an increase in expenses. The proposed capital budgets, we have 7 different, misspoke, 6 capital budgets. Our biggest expenditure is the fire truck engine replacement. The existing apparatus has reached its end-of-year life at up 20 years. The second one is our self-contained breathing apparatuses for the town's fire department. They are at their end of life. It should be 15, yep. And are due for replacement. The carbon monoxide detection system at the pool isn't necessary to monitor the CO levels in the storage room and the mechanical rooms that exist within the facility. The aquatic center expansion tank and bladder replacement is another lifespan replacement, and it's at its 20 years for the tank and 7 years for the bladder. Within the curling rink, we have a black backflow prevention, which prevents the water. The device ensures that contaminated water does not impact the town's drinking water. And lastly, we have our family center ice resurfacing batteries, which again are at end of life. As you can see here on the slides, the budget impacts for each of the capital business cases. I'll turn it over to Jamie now.
Good evening, Your Worship and Council. I'm just going to go through some of the highlights of the Infrastructure Operations and Development Services budget. The division comprises infrastructure, operations, parks, development services, as well as asset management. Some of the operating budget highlights, we aren't proposing any staffing changes in 2025. There are some increases in contractual agreements for water treatment and solid waste, due mainly to CPI increases, as well as some increases in material costs, costs due to inflation. This shows the overall change in expenses and revenues for the division. Some of the capital budget highlights are continuing work on the water reservoir upgrades at Wildflower and decommissioning the Brentwood Reservoir. We have a splash park recirculation system that'll conserve potable water and reduce operating costs. We also have the Kinsman Park tree replacement project that will develop a plan to ensure overall health of the tree canopy over time, as well as some key fleet replacements, including a plow truck replacement, a water truck replacement, as well as a new snow blower attachment for snow removal. This lists all of the capital budget items that we're proposing with their budget impacts. So there are several. And that concludes staff's presentation. Thank you.
Are there, I think throughout we could have probably been asking questions, but are there any questions or comments for administration? Councillor Wagner?
Councillor Langmaid was first.
My apologies, Councillor Langmaid.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. I'm just looking back at slide 16 here. Proposed 2025 budget non-annual recurring expenses. I'm not sure who the best person to ask would be, so I'm just going to ask the question. Whoever wants to grab it can jump up in line excitedly, I guess. I'm just looking here at the chart included here, specifically for the municipal election. I see here that it says annual reserve funding of $100,000 and then reserve funding for 2020. The way that the chart looks, it looks like we're putting away $100,000 a year for elections. Should that maybe more accurately be $25,000 every year? And then over in the, I just want to make sure I understand it correctly.
So the annual reserve funding for the total project, because we haven't been putting money away for the municipal election on an annual basis, this is our one-time blip.
Okay, so this is, the annual reserve funding is specifically what we're looking at.
For 2025, yes.
So what is the next column, 2025 reserve funding showing?
It shows zero. You're not putting anything in for 2025.
I guess maybe with more clarity, what is the difference between these two columns?
If we were doing this starting 4 years ago, we would have been putting $25,000 a year. In 2025, you would have put no money away in 2025, but you would have pulled $75,000 out into pulling it from reserves. You still would have had an expenditure of $100,000, but your overall tax impact would still be the $25,000.
Okay, so why is there no funds reserved in 2026, 2027, or 2028 then?
Because we're not completing the project in those years. We're going to be doing it'll be $25,000 in 2026, 27, and 28.
Okay, all right.
This is our blip because we're just starting the program with you guys.
Okay, so just to confirm, other than this year,
That's
going forward,
correct.
we will not be putting away $100,000
That
a year
is
for
correct.
elections. We're not anticipating that being the need.
I'm not anticipating that we're going to be having by-elections every year, so.
Perfect, thank you very much.
Can I do a follow-up related to that question, Your Worship? So I've been following other like-sized communities in terms of the municipal election costs relevant to, I sat out Alberta Muni this year, but I watched the sessions, and there was a lot of concern about the cost being passed down to municipal taxpayers relevant to this cost. And since then, I've been watching like-sized communities and what they're projecting, and we might have underestimated. Is that a possibility? That we might have seriously underestimated the cost on this? Or not seriously, but somewhat? Because I'm seeing costs of like communities of up to $250,000.
So thank you, Your Worship Council. So over the last couple of years, we have been making small contributions to reserves. So what we're budgeting for the election in the upcoming year is $150,000.
Beautiful.
We are also exploring opportunities to partner with other municipalities to see if there's any cost savings that we can find as
Looking
well.
into 2027, when we have probably a provincial election in October of 2027, we should maybe invest in some tabulators before then. They're probably cheap right now.
Councillor Wagner.
Thank you. This question is for Director Pretzlaff. Just kind of looking at your ones, the fire truck replacement, $480,000. Is that what the cost is? I thought they were significantly more than $480,000.
Through the chair, Councilor Wagner, you're correct. That is a very low number, a very cheap fire truck. In reality, it's the first installment. We would have one payment for 2025 and another installment for 2026 for the delivery of the truck in 2027.
That's kind of what I was thinking. All right, thank you.
I had a follow-up question on the truck. And then what happens to the existing truck?
Through the chair, they're no longer regulated by the province of Alberta. So we have different options to try to recoup some costs, whether it's, sell it to another jurisdiction that may allow for trucks over 20 years. Obviously, if this project isn't supported, there's additional risks onto the town by using a vehicle that is over its lifespan. So our hope is that, again, we get funding or get support for council for this one, and then we can figure out how to dispose of the other truck.
But there might be some cost recovery options.
Potentially.
I mean, the Canadian military keeps 50-year-old helicopters flying. Maybe they have a need for a 20-year-old truck. Sometimes flying. Thank you. Any other questions from councillors? Councillor Montgomery?
I just want to point out that this is the first time in the 7 years that I've been on council where there's actually been a decrease in the operating budget. So I just want to say kudos and thank you to administration for, I know you guys dug deep and looked really hard at things. And so thank you very much to everyone.
Yeah, I have some general comments as well too. As a taxpayer, when I hear property tax increase of 4-something%, I think, oh, there's a council that's spending, like, look at this, they're increasing spending by 4%. But I really hope that the message that people can hear, I hope firstly they watch this presentation. Our administration has done a fantastic job. But I hope some of the messages they can hear is that at the same time that all of our rents and mortgages are going up, at the same time as our groceries are going up, utilities are going up, our administration has managed to have a very steady hand at the wheel here, and we've seen small incremental tax increases year after year after year on this council. Our debt is down, meaning our payments are down. Our reserve savings are going up, especially our repair and maintenance reserve, which is something that every homeowner or business owner has to have. And as Councillor Montgomery said, our operating costs are down. CEO Scoble called this an investment-focused budget that's maintaining service levels. So as homeowners and business owners are feeling the same pinch as we have, and they're seeing their costs going up and up and up, I know personally that I am very proud of our administration and what they've done here to keep this very, very reasonable. This is not a spending budget. And so thank you to administration, and just hopefully the public at home can hear that communicated. Any other general comments or questions from council? Councillor Montgomery?
Yeah, I have a question, Leanna, if I could ask you. Does the town pay franchise fees on our utilities?
Through the chair, I'm sorry, I don't have that answer right now. I'd have to look into that and get back to you on that one.
Okay, yeah, it's just something that occurred to me when we were talking about utilities. And the other thing, I guess, is, but we do pay on anything that they apply it to. We pay a carbon tax. That's correct?
That is correct
And
on our
we are
natural
not able
gas.
to get a rebate for that?
No, we do not.
Okay. And I just bring that up just to, so people are aware, as Councillor Wiley was mentioning, that, there are some costs that are, applied to us that, we have no way to avoid them. So we're affected the same way a lot of people and businesses are, unfortunately. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And that concludes the proposed budget presentation and moves us to item 10.2, Town of Strathmore and Wheatland County Intermunicipal Collaboration Framework, the ICF. And Director Dugdale, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. The ICF is being presented to Council this evening for final approval after many months of work by the Intermunicipal Collaboration Committee of both municipalities as well as staff here at the town in Wheatland County. The ICF will come into effect on January 1, 2025, once both councils pass matching resolutions. The two key elements within the ICF are the Recreation Cost Sharing Agreement and the Shared Emergency Services Agreement within it that are referenced. The term of the ICF expires at the end of 2031, and prior to expiry, the ICC must meet at least once to review the ICF and then update it accordingly. An ICF is a requirement of the MGA for any municipalities that share a boundary and are not included within a growth board. And of course, when Strathmore and Wheatland County left the CMRB several years ago, this required that both an ICF and an IDF be completed between the two municipalities. In conclusion, staff's asking that council approve the ICF tonight as presented and direct the document to be executed by the mayor and the CAO, and I'll answer any questions of council. Thank you.
Are there any questions from councillors? Councillor Langmaid?
Thank you very much, Your Worship. My question is about the term of the agreement for 7 years up to 2031. How did we land on 7 years?
Through the chair, that's part, I believe, in the act that directs that term. I mean, it can be, I think you can do less, but we thought it would make sense to do as much as we could. That being said, the ICC could meet at any time and amend that agreement as well.
Okay, so there's no concerns. Where my mind went with this is technically that means that the next council would not have an opportunity to review this unless both parties agree to meet as the ICC. Is that correct? That's correct.
Of course, if there's if in that time there was some other service areas that we felt we could share, then it could be opened up as well. So it's not a kind of close, it's just that's the kind of maximum term you would leave it.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Montgomery?
I'm just ready with a motion.
All right, seeing no other questions, go ahead.
I'll move the council adopt the Town of Strathmore Wheatland County Intermunicipal Collaboration Framework as presented in Attachment 1, and that council authorize the mayor and chief administrative officer to sign the agreement for a term of 7 years from January 1st, 2025 to December 31st, 2031.
Now that the motion is on the floor, are there any questions or comments? Excellent. I call the question. All in favor? And that is carried unanimously. We are now on to section 11. 11.1, questions between councillors and council statements. If there's none of those, we've accepted a number of meeting Oh, I'm sorry, Councillor Langmaid.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to take a quick moment to recognize the Strathmore Library, who received an award about a week and a half ago at the Business Excellence Awards for the Best Nonprofit of the Year. I am proud to be the representative appointed to the Strathmore Library Board, and I recognize the incredible amount of work they do for our community. And I just want to congratulate them on that win.
Thank you for sharing that, Councillor Langmaid. Yeah, congratulations. We received a number of minutes that have been approved through the consent agenda on boards and committee reports in 11.2, which brings us to 11.3, question and answer period. I believe, Councillor Mitzner, you had a question for administration.
So I've received numerous calls over the last 2 days in reference to a rumor that the town of Strathmore is closing down Dinosaur Hill, that there'll be no longer any toboggans permitted, et cetera, et cetera. So don't know how this got out. Some people were approached directly, so I just need some clarification for the community, please.
Through the chair, the town's not closing Dino Hill. So we're not closing Dino Hill.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
That is excellent news. Great. Okay. Yeah, that's a sacred cow you do not tip. Any other questions for 11.3? Oh, my apologies. It's lit up. Councillor Montgomery.
Thank you. Donna, maybe you could answer my question. I just was, and I've seen it, beyond my own kind of curiosity. I've seen people wondering what's happening with Kinsman Lake. It's obviously quite low right now, so I was just wondering if you wanted to talk about that at all. Okay.
Councillor Montgomery, there is normal fluctuations of that lake.
Yeah.
Generally, you'll see it higher in the spring, you'll see it lower in the fall. It is slightly lower than normal currently, but that's just partially due to the amount of precipitation we've had in the last month to 2 months. So nothing abnormal. We haven't intentionally drained it for any reason. It's just part of the natural adjustments to the lake throughout the year.
I was going to mention that, so I've noticed like it might be really good for the wildlife actually to leave it lower. There's a lot more kind of area for birds and stuff like that, to like kind of beach area almost for them. And then I was wondering if it'd be possible for us to maybe take advantage of the low level to do a bit of cleanup. Like I noticed like there's kind of a lot of garbage. There's even like a bike sitting kind of near one of the docks, like on the dirt. Mud, I should call it actually. So I just wanted to, I guess, kind of leave that with you guys as an idea.
No, we'll monitor that, and I'll work with Donna on any cleanup that's necessary.
Okay,
Thank you.
Okay, any administrative inquiries or notices of motion? Correspondence? Well, that brings us to item 13, a closed meeting, and I believe Jonathan has sent us an amendment to that one. So if somebody's going to be prepared to make the motion, they'll have to check their emails to get the amendment. It's a race. It's a race with one. No, two. You're on. Tortoise hair. Go. And the tortoise wins. Go ahead, Councillor Peterson.
Thank you. Thank you, Jonathan. That council defer discussion on closed meeting agenda item 3.2, council CAO dialogue, advice from officials, FOIP section 24(1)(b)(I), to the second closed meeting section of the regular council agenda. It's kind of an after-the-fact motion, Your Worship.
Does that satisfy the procedure, or do we have to also say the FOIP section numbers? I missed that. I was organizing paper. We're good? Okay, so I call the question. All in favor? And we are moving into closed meeting. Good night. We need a wasn't that what that was?
No.